The most dangerous compromise is the one that still lets you call yourself a good man. One philosopher wrote that wealth should never be stained by another person's blood. That same philosopher accepted vast gifts from Nero. This story gives you 3 tests for when helping becomes serving what you meant to stop. Power rarely asks you to betray everything at once. It pays you, praises you, and lets each smaller surrender look responsible. Miss that bargain, and your principles survive only as words. His name was Seneca. In 49 CE, Agrippina secured his recall from exile and made him tutor to her 11-year-old son. The boy was Nero. As emperor, Nero promised mercy and respect for the Senate, ideas associated with Seneca's counsel. But a philosopher can write a ruler's words, he cannot command the man speaking them. Yet Nero grew more violent as Seneca accepted his estates, gardens, and money. His wealth proves no approval. It leaves one question. Did Seneca stay to limit the damage, or teach a violent regime how to sound virtuous? Tacitus says Seneca later offered back his estates. Nero refused. By then, the gift had become a chain. Next comes the dinner where Tacitus says Britannicus was poisoned. Seneca's role is unknown. What followed is the question. Britannicus was 13, the son of the previous emperor and Nero's adoptive brother. At a palace dinner in 55 CE, Tacitus says poison was added to water used to cool the boy's drink. Britannicus lost his voice and collapsed. Nero told the room it was an epileptic seizure and that the boy would recover. He did not. History does not tell us that Seneca planned the killing, knew it was coming, or could have prevented it. He tells us something more uncomfortable. Seneca remained. Around this period, Seneca addressed Nero in On Mercy. He offered the emperor a mirror for his power. A ruler, he argued, was strongest when he could punish and chose restraint. The argument was beautiful. The palace around it was becoming deadly. That creates the first test. When you say you are staying to reduce the damage, what damage can you still prove you are reducing? Because good intentions leave no record, consequences do. While Seneca's influence remained difficult to measure, his wealth became easier to count. The commander Burrus helped hold the Praetorian Guard, while Seneca supplied arguments, speeches, and a language of restraint. For a time, the arrangement appeared to work. Nero's opening years were remembered as more disciplined than what followed. The young emperor could sound like the ruler Seneca wanted him to become. But influence near a throne is never clean. The advisor gains access, the ruler gains legitimacy. Each man can point to the other as proof of good intentions. Seneca also became extraordinarily rich. An enemy named Sulius accused him of collecting 300 million sesterces in 4 years. Tacitus preserves the charge, but it came from a hostile man defending himself, not an audited account. The exact number matters less than the contradiction. Nero's favor brought estates, gardens, and money. In On the Happy Life, Seneca insisted that wealth could belong to a wise person if it arrived without staining anyone's blood. That is a demanding condition inside any palace. Inside Nero's palace, it was becoming impossible. The next test is whether power can make you say the wrong thing. In 59 CE, that test arrived with the woman who had brought Seneca back from exile, Agrippina. Agrippina had maneuvered her son toward the throne, secured Seneca as his tutor, and expected to remain powerful. Nero wanted her gone. Tacitus gives a dramatic account of a failed attempt at sea, followed by soldiers sent to finish the killing. Ancient accounts dispute details, but Agrippina died on Nero's order. Then the emperor needed an explanation. A letter told the Senate that Agrippina had plotted against her son and died after her attempt was exposed. Tacitus says Seneca composed it. That sentence changes the shape of the story. Seneca did not order the soldiers. What the surviving account places in his hand is language. The philosopher who had taught mercy helped present a mother's killing as an act of public safety. Perhaps refusing would only make him the next victim. Perhaps he still believed he prevented worse decisions. We cannot recover his calculation, but we can see the public result. Nero committed the violence. Seneca's skill helped make the violence sound lawful. That is the second test. What can you still refuse? What request would make you place your position on the table and say no? If you cannot name that line before power reaches it, power will move the line for you. Seneca remained near Nero for almost 3 more years. Then the other restraint on the emperor disappeared. Burrus died. Tacitus says Burrus's death broke Seneca's remaining influence. New advisors moved closer to Nero. Seneca now tried to leave. According to Tacitus, he asked Nero to take back his fortune and let him retire. Tacitus writes polished speeches, not a transcript, but the action is clear. Seneca offered back the estates. Nero refused. Nero answered with affection. Accepting the money, he said, would make his own greed obvious. He asked Seneca to remain. It sounds gracious until you notice that the younger man is denying the older man an exit. Seneca withdrew as far as he could. Tacitus says he dismissed visitors and avoided public appearances. He had finally recognized the cost of staying. But recognition is not the same as freedom. His wealth made departure look like accusation. His name had authenticated the regime. His survival depended on the man he no longer wished to serve. That is the third test. What will leaving cost you? And are you willing to pay it while leaving is still your choice? Seneca tried to return the gift. The gift had already become a chain. 3 years later, Nero found a reason to pull it tight. In 65 CE, a group around Gaius Calpurnius Piso planned to remove Nero. The conspiracy was exposed. Names began to fall. One conspirator, Natalis, said he carried a message between Piso and Seneca. The exchange was vague. Seneca had avoided Piso, then said his safety depended on Piso's. Tacitus is explicit about what Nero did not have. He had not established that Seneca belonged to the conspiracy. He did not need proof. Soldiers reached Seneca outside Rome and delivered the command that he die. Tacitus shapes the scene like Socrates. Seneca asks for his will. The officer refuses. He tells his friends that he leaves them the example of his life. His wife, Paulina, chooses to die beside him. Nero orders that she be saved, Tacitus says, to limit hatred of his cruelty. Seneca's death is slow. His body resists the ending his philosophy had rehearsed. He continues dictating while strength leaves him, then dies in the steam of a hot bath. Tacitus was writing history and constructing a moral portrait. The private speeches cannot be checked word for word. The larger fact does not depend on the speeches. The teacher Nero once needed had become a witness Nero no longer wanted alive. Seneca finally left the palace, but Nero chose the door. It is tempting to declare Seneca a hypocrite. That answer is clean, which is why it teaches so little. Seneca may have believed every word he wrote, while each reward made living by those words more expensive. Calling him a hidden hero is just as easy. The evidence cannot measure the disasters he prevented, and it does not erase the letter written after Agrippina's death. Seneca is useful because he does not fit either verdict. He shows how compromise works on people who still possess principles. It begins with access. You are the reasonable person in the room. You can soften the decision. If you leave, someone worse will replace you. Sometimes that is true, so test it. First, who benefits from your staying? Name the harm you are preventing. If your presence only feels responsible, you may be protecting a story about yourself. Second, what can you still refuse? Write the line before the request arrives. If it moves when your status is threatened, power is training you. Third, what price will you pay to leave? Money, praise, access, and identity become expensive to surrender. A rising cost of departure is the chain being built. Seneca taught that wealth should never be stained by another person's blood. His life leaves us with the harder lesson. Do not wait until you can see the stain. Test the bargain while the door still opens.